It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to be discussing the PvP counter teams to some of the meta you guys are probably seeing right now. So, what you might have already seen is four fronts with Wildberry, Dark Cacao, Caramel Arrow, and Madeline using either Pomegranate, Herb, or Parfait. So, two of the counters. Affogato is going to be mainly used when they are using Herb. The reason is the D-spell that's going to happen from Affogato. It's poison when Herb goes ahead and dispels all the debuffs, is going to send a shockwave of poison against everybody, and then combine that with the timing of Caramel arrows exploding on them, they're going to lose at least one, if not both, of their healers, depending on their damage resistance. The only time that I wasn't able to properly counter their team was when it was a very high damage resistance side team, but I have not run into that much. But if you do, that would be about the only time this counter would not work. Another one is a risky one. This one really depends on who they're running. So if they're running Herb, this one's not going to work. If they're running Parfait, it's also going to be tough. But this one's pretty good against Pomegranate, and the reason is Clotted Cookie is going to hit one of their four fronts. Usually it's going to be either Wildberry or Dark Cacao. And so what's going to happen is they're going to get pushed back, giving your Wildberry and Caramel Arrow a chance to hit one of their fronts or potentially their middle point. And Clotted Cream is going to deal a lot of damage. Usually the feather here is going to go to your Dark Cacao, but it may go to Clotted too. So either way, that's going to be helpful for those reasons because it's going to lay in the damage. But with Pomegranate, you want to get as much damage as you can done quickly, and that's why Clotted is helpful here because of the AoE damage that's being done, in addition to moving one of the tanks out of your battle stance for a few seconds. So between the stun of him, between the stun of Wildberry, that is another team that's kind of able to roll through against a counter matchup. It's still going to be really tough. If they've got high damage resistance, you don't have much of a chance countering that team for that reason. The other one, this one is not against the 4-tank team. This one's actually against the sorbet teams. So you're going to see sorbet teams out there because sorbet team is a counter to the 4-tank team, and I'll discuss that one in a moment. But this team specifically focuses on buffing Clotted Cream. Now you need to have some really good damage resistance toppings, whether you're just using straight up almond toppings or you have at least 30% of the max substat damage resistance on your other toppings such as chocolate, raspberry, etc. That is because if you don't, these do not have enough defensive power to go against much burst teams. So I would not take this against a Kumio team. I would not take this against a speed team specifically, because those are going to just light through this team. So this team is not meant for those. This team is really meant for the summoner team or for the sorbet team. Now, the reason the summoner team, obviously, Blossom's going to get the biggest amount of buff stacks because of all the summoned creatures on everybody. Mango, Pomegranate, and Cotton are all going to give it an attack buff. You're going to get a massive amount of damage from Clotted Cream Cookie. And I'll show you that. I'll see if I can find some teams that do that. And then for the sorbet team, because Pomegranate comes out, or Pom Pom from Pumpkin Pie, you're going to get that extra attack stack buffs, and the attack buffs are going to be pretty helpful. And then last but not least, one of my favorite teams is currently the Summoner team. This one's going to work against sorbet teams, and pretty good against T-Knight teams too. And that's because the extensional amount of persistent damage that is sent from the front, from both Snow King and Pom Pom, they're going to be ones that are mainly handling the T-Knight Caramel Arrow teams. Because what's happening is the slowdown of attack speed from Snow Sugar, the stun and knockbacks from Wildberry, it all blends very nicely together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the teams that we can fight just to kind of give you some examples. So, for instance, we can take this team. So this is a 2-front with mids. So the best counter for this one is going to be probably the forefront or the T-Knight team. Now, the forefront, we got Affogato, so that should handle Herb. We have Madeline and Caramel Arrow to combat their speed. And we have Wildberry and Cacao to eliminate their shields from Eclair and to stun down the team. So, let's go ahead and give it a try. And the lineup of skills should line up pretty nicely. Eclair is going to be the one that's getting the debuff from Affogato. And we've lost Cacao because of how fast the match battle is between this type of team. But as you can see, it is a close fight. And so what they probably have is some really great damage resistance on this team, because we battled through pretty well. I will make one change that may make the difference, and that's going to be the feather. So if we put, sometimes you need to change between feather and attack robes to really make the difference. So we're going to do that real quick. We're going to change from the attack robes to feather. And so kind of gauge the situation. It's a little tough as the meta is still kind of settling and still shaking about. But since Dark Cacao will likely be the first one to go down, that means the feathers should light up on him, which means we get another pop through. And now their team's just melting away. And so as you can see, we took the lead here. Granted, they've still got good fighting power, but we pushed through. So that really made the difference there. Even though the robes help with Caramel Arrow and Madeline, making them go faster, we just got the overall damage output from the feather because of that second skill activation from Dark Cacao. So that's why I wanted to show you that that wasn't a fluke of like me losing and like, no, it's not a counter team. It is. It really is. You just need to have the right treasure setup. And the insignia is there for A, healing, because you really don't have healers when you're doing this setup. So if one goes down, you heal the rest of the team. And then B, it's also there for a last stance, because sometimes you get like Caramel Arrow or Madeline as the last stance, and they can speed through. And so that works really well too. So let's take some other people, some other teams. Let's see. So that is an old team. We won't look at that one. I believe there's one other good one here. Okay, so here's a sorbet team. So here's a good example. So they've got sorbet, pumpkin, cotton, herb, and parfait. There's at least 2 targets there that are summoning more creatures. Blossom should get us the overall attack buffs for that reason. So here we go. Let's see what we got. And so the skills line up pretty nicely that will kind of stun down their team to start. You can see a 10 tack bus, which is going to make our healing even stronger too. And at first it's like, okay, it's just a battle out, it's a push out, it's kind of a stalled. So it's not a quick fight. This is more a survive and buff kind of thing. But since all the buffs are on our side, we're not going to be worrying about herb dispelling anything on their side. We're not going to be worrying about the weakness from Eclair or anything. We're not going to be worried about shields. We're just completely pushing through. So as you can see, it's a tough fight. It's a close fight. And every second we're just kind of chipping away. But our health bar is staying up at that 100%. And then finally we just take it. So what's happening there is all the attack buffs are just going crazy. And you can see Clotted Cream with 5.5 million damage. Blossom also doing 4.4. And then Mango still even doing great as well. And I only have a level 52 Mango. But that's how much I'm confident in this team against sorbet teams, is because what's happening here is just the different buffs are stacking so insanely high. I mean, 7 million healing damage. Or, sorry, 7 million healing. On their side, 2, 4, 6, almost 7 million. So we've out-healed them. We've out-damaged them. And they've got someone who can do amazing damage. They've got a lineup that technically can synergize really well. But we are buffing our team to the absolute limit that we can do with all 4 of those cookies and then Clotted Cream. And then Clotted Cream is just lighting the field up with AoE damage. And it's working great. So these are some of the teams I want to cover real quick. The one other one, though, the sorbet team, the one that we just fought, that team right there, they're probably doing that as their defense team because that is the counter as well to the forefront team. So if you're running that team, that will work against a forefront counter too. And I can actually show you that right here. I won't use Affogato. I'll just use the traditional team because Affogato would give me a better chance. But I will run it without Affogato to show you the difference. And so as you can see, we've got great damage, we've got great push-outs, but their health bar is just going right back up. They're healing, they're healing, they're healing, they're chipping away, they're healing, they're chipping away, and they just inch at us and nibble at us bit by bit by bit. And our feather gives us a small chance here, but it's going to be pretty close. And if we do win, it's just because our labs and toppings are better. But honestly, we shouldn't win this. And yeah, they've definitely taken the lead now. So that should be proof that, like, that's not the counter to the sorbet team. The sorbet team is the counter to the forefront team. And that insignia keeps us going longer. But we're going to try with Affogato, just to show you that the Affogato is going to make a really big difference in this matchup. Even though we won't have any healing, and we also technically won't have attack buffs, Affogato is going to really make a true difference in this full-on battle here. It's not. I don't know if it's going to take us to the win because it's not a forefront team. That's where Affogato really can shine against the forefront herb team. But it should still give us a big comeback potential because of that poison dispelling, which is going to light up a bomb on their side of the team. And same with Caramel Arrow going in. So it's tight. We still probably will not win this one. But that's just proof that we had better chances because of Affogato, but we did not get to take the win. Also, that's a visual bug, it looks like, with Wildberry trying to glow and activate the skill when Wildberry wasn't alive. So that's pretty interesting, too. And you can see right there, Affogato doing 3.3 million damage. So Affogato is really the clutch when it comes to AoE targets and herb because of dispelling. That's going to be your best chances there. But it is not a counter to the sorbet team. The summoner team is, or the buff team, because you can run the summoner team too. Summoner team against this, it's very close in team style, as you can see, but really we're just absolutely pushing massive amounts of bodies on the field while getting damage resistance from Wildberry. And as you can see, we're just pushing them back and further and further and further. And even though Sorbet is there to take down Wildberry as best as he can, our team level of power is still going to push over what they can do. And that's all because of the pincushion and the team summonings and multiple creatures. You can see 3 million damage there versus Sorbet's 1.8 on the other side. So I hope this video was helpful for you. It's just a counter building team because you're going to see a lot of this meta. You're going to see, these front teams, the Kumio scams. You're going to see the forefronts with Herb and Pomegranate. You're going to probably see some T-Knight teams similar, but probably not with Clotted Cream to start. But be prepared for these kind of teams because they're going to counter each other accordingly. And it's good that we have 5 team builds now because now we can make the setup to be ready for that kind of situation. Please leave any comments or any thoughts you have on the teams. Do you have any counter teams that I haven't covered here? Is there any specific team that you would like to see that could be a counter team, or you would hope that would be a counter team? I'd love to hear it. Or maybe you've created a new meta and nobody knows about it either. Just let us know in the comments. We'd love to see it. Either way, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for stopping by.